the RV Advisor's Roadside Assistance Plan, we've got you covered for just $99 per year. Visit thervadvisor.com today.
This is the RV Advisor Podcast with your host, Tom Alexander. Get all the latest information, trends, advice from experts, stories from the road, and more in the world of recreational vehicles. Now, here's Tom.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the RV Advisor Podcast. My name's Tom Alexander, and the smiling face you see on the other side of the screen is our good friend and returning champion. It is Keith Bernard from Clear2O. Hey, Keith, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me again.
Well, it's always good to see you, and you know, we've had you on a couple of times already, and you've always shared some really good, solid product information with us, and today will be no different. We'll certainly take a look and see what's in the pipeline there at Clear2O. Why do I say 2.0 all the time? Anyway, at Clear2O. Let me ask you this. You just got back from the Tampa show just recently, it was in January, and a lot of things going on over there. I know last time when we saw you there, you were in a booth, and it was a whirlwind of activity, a beehive of activity, if you will. How'd it go this time around?
Well, we were a bit nervous when you read on it, everything, and we had actually doubled the size of our booth simply because when you were there, it was so crowded in the booth, we couldn't even move around hardly. So we decided to expand it and give ourselves some more room and be able to kind of showcase our products a little bit better. So we had already invested in the show, a year ago. And then, of course, we were wondering, are we going to be at the show by ourselves? We saw there were some numbers floating around that 20 to 30% of the vendors weren't going to be able to attend. A lot of booths will be empty, or at least expected to be empty. And we expected the tickets to be, the gate to be down. But in truth, I can tell you, at Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., there was a line in our booth, and it didn't stop all the way to Sunday. So it was crowded. I don't know exactly whether or not the actual participation was higher than the previous year, but for the amount of people that were there that were interested in talking about water, it was huge. And when we were just, you don't get it out of your booth, of course, very often, but when we did get able to walk around a little bit, the rest of the show was crowded and everybody was talking. So I assume it was a very successful show.
Good. So good energy over there this time. I know there was a lot of concern, and rightly so, that, because of COVID and everything, it was, folks were, obviously extra careful and concerned about going, and both vendors and guests. So it was, something to concern. But by, your count and by a few that we've heard along the way, that it actually was like you said, a pretty successful show. And we're about just a little over, almost a month and a half now into the new year. And I'm sure that you've got as always, a few things on tap over there at Clear2O. And we want to find out about some new things that you've got going, some products that you can share with us and show us. And we'll describe them for those folks that listen only. They get the audio portion of the podcast only. But for those watching, you can see it widescreen, live, and in Technicolor, as they say.
That's right. And I always look better on radio. So.
Oh, hey, listen, I hear that. I've got a face for radio, as the old saying goes. We are speaking with Keith Bernard from Clear2O. This is the RV Advisor Podcast. We'll be back with Keith in just a moment. Stand by.
RV owners and those thinking about owning want to maximize the fun and minimize the hassle of buying an RV? You need GPS. It's Gigi's personal service. Our $350 package gets you me, the expert advice, and a host of outstanding services. Visit thervadvisor.com.
We are back on the RV Advisor Podcast. My name's Tom Alexander. Of course, my guest is our good friend. It's Keith Bernard from Clear2O. Oh, and he's right here in South Florida, right by us. And we keep telling each other, well, I keep telling him, we're going to see each other in person one of these days again, but we just haven't made that work. Or I'm going to put that on me. I take full responsibility for that. But
as soon as the coffee shops are fully open,
hey, listen, we'll make that happen, Keith. No question. So listen, I know that you said we were talking in the break and ahead of time, actually, a little bit, and you said you've got some new things to show us. So please go. Let's share it with the folks.
Well, there's a couple things. One of the things, since we just came out of the show, one key thing that we noticed, and we were getting a lot of questions on in the booth, was the amount of new RVs that actually were coming with some filtration on them already.
Yeah.
And usually those are in the canister style. I'm kind of describing this, but these are the 10 by 2.5 canisters, and more RV manufacturers are starting those with actually having one installed at the very start. So people are now wondering, and they were in our booth asking us, well, what do I put in there? What does it come with? What is that for, etc. So I thought maybe we just have some conversation about that.
Sure.
Overall and just in general, and just kind of talk a little bit about canister styles. We actually offer 3 different canisters on our website. We have them with the bracket, with the stands, and we have double, and then we'll be introducing a couple more in the near future as well. But the key thing on a canister system versus the inline systems, which are usually the ones that are done outside the coach, the canister systems can be mounted inside. They can be used outside as well, but generally the new ones are being mounted inside in a wet bay or under a sink, is most likely where they're going to be located. Or sometimes they're just inside in one of the compartments. And so you have to kind of find it. Every RV is going to be in a little bit different spot, but more and more coming with them. And these are all standard 10-inch by 2.5-inch filters that come with them. And when the manufacturer puts those in, they always usually start them with a sediment type of filter. A pre-filter is really what it is. So I brought some of those to kind of show some different ones that are available out there. So this style here that you can see is actually called a string wound filter. Now, this is actually, I don't know if you can see it in the camera well enough.
Yeah, we see it really well. Why don't you tell our folks who are just listening, get the audio only,
sure,
kind of what we're talking about here.
Sure. So this is actually just a plastic core. Then the name actually is exactly what it is. It's a string wound filter, which is just goes on a machine and it winds string around it, overlapping the string until you actually have the size of a 10-inch by 2.5-inch filter. And when that actually is just a string touching each other is what is blocking everything.
I see.
So you're really just trying to go through that multiple layers of string, okay, overall.
Right.
The second type is actually called a spun filter, and you'll see these in different ones. I want to notice that some of these things here where you see that the filter itself is actually the end cap as well. And so that's a little bit different, and the string wound is actually the same way where they're all there. Now, these are actually blown filters, and they're usually on the higher micron level. The key thing is both on the string wound and on the spun filter itself, you can see that they actually are the complete filter overall. The next actually is what's called a pleated filter. Now you're probably familiar with these as well, and different things that comes out. So those are there. And again, they vary in micron size as well. And then lastly, you have filters that are such as ours, which actually are a wrapped filter. So this is actually where sheets are made and then they actually are wrapped around the actual filter. So it's that combination of layers that actually is blocking everything. Now, one of the things that we have different is we include gaskets on the end. And so these are for better sealing, and we have a structure through the entire. So one of the points that I wanted to make is you get what you pay for in regard to the various different filters that are out there. You will find a number of these, whether they're online or whether or not they are actually in store. And there's a reason why you quite often find these to be less expensive. Mostly these are for RO systems, and that's the ones you find in the various different big box stores. And that's really what they're used for. They're more for under the sink RO type systems, where we're trying to make ours really more for the RV use as opposed to the general type of filters that you see here. And so that's the important part is again, when you see that everything here is built in or it comes with nothing at all overall, is you do get what you pay for when you build all of these things, and they can all work. But the key aspect of it is look for the micron size. Always look for the micron. If there is no micron listed, then just have to make the assumption it's a very high micron. And so they're not making any claim for that whatsoever. The lower the micron, the better. Just again, for your listeners, a micron is a millionth of a meter. So it's a very tiny, tiny, tiny measure.
Yeah.
And so the smaller the micron, the better it is. So our filters, as an example, our universal 10 by 2.5 pre-filter or sediment filters, these are 5 micron. So that's our recommendation. Now, what that means is that you're going to catch a lot more contaminants in a 5 micron than you are in a 30 micron, as an example. The 30 micron is going to allow a lot of the finer silts and sediments to actually pass through.
Right.
So the key thing on that is we recommend going with the lower micron, and that means you are going to have to change them more often, but you are going to get cleaner water and you're going to protect your coach a lot better as well. The next I want to talk a little bit about is carbon. And generally,
let's check that out.
The next stage of every filtration system, if you have more than one stage, is a carbon system. Now, you can use these also in a single stage as well. And quite often I recommend doing that as opposed to just a pre-filter or sediment filter. If you're not going to drink the water, then a sediment filter is good because it protects your equipment, it protects your coach, but it's really not going to change the quality of your water whatsoever. To change the quality of your water, you need to move on to carbon. And carbon comes in a couple of different ways. Again, they're all 10 by 2.5 inch universal, fit in generally most all of the canisters that are coming on today. But one of the things I wanted to show here is a carbon filter, and here's another carbon filter, actually our carbon filter. And so as you look at them, they look very similar. There's a little bit difference in weight between the two, but I cut these in half just so you can see, because not all carbon filters are the same. And if you want the actual best value, you're going to want to get a solid carbon filter as opposed to a carbon wrap filter.
Right.
And the difference between the two.
Letting the folks know for on the audio cast, what we're looking at here are what, about 3 inches in diameter, 4 inches in diameter?
2.5 inches in diameter.
Okay.
Except one is fully made from solid carbon block. And the other one is only about 20% is carbon, and the rest of it is a spun core. So the majority of it only has about 20% of the carbon of the solid carbon block.
Gotcha.
So even though they look alike from the outside, on the inside, you don't realize that this one only has 20% of the carbon of a solid carbon block. And so therefore, carbon is an absorptive material. That's how it actually is going to work. It's going to absorb the contaminants as they're coming by. So whenever it is fully absorbed, any more contaminants can come by are going to pass through that filter. There's no place for it to be absorbed any longer. So the more carbon that you have, the more absorptive properties it has. So therefore it will last longer and it's going to remove more contaminants. So flow rate is not necessarily just the right measure for everything. Flow rate is a measure, but it's not the measure of whether or not that water is clean or not. The measure is actually making sure that you're using a solid carbon block and you're getting the most carbon and water to mix together as possible to be able to remove those contaminants. So I just wanted to show these because it is important. A lot of times if you're at the store and you pick them up, you can definitely feel a difference in weight. The heavier that is, generally it's going to be the solid carbon block. The lighter it is, generally is going to have a styrofoam core in it, and therefore you're just not going to get the same amount of carbon overall. And you'll see these out there at various different price points overall. And then the third area is just something for consideration for if you actually did have a third canister on board, and which in a lot of larger coaches, they're actually adding the third one in there as well, or sometimes they place these under a faucet or a sink, etc. And this is actually a pleated filter. It actually is encased in carbon, but what it is it's a very low micron filter. So this is only a half micron. So in truth, it is much, much better than a number of the filters out there at half micron. So you're down at the microbial level when you're getting down to that level of micron overall. Right. Generally, when we say starting out, for the people that have that single canister, they can, again, either go with the pleated type, the pre-filter type or sediment filters. But if they're going to drink the water, we definitely recommend the solid carbon block. For us, we make both in 5 micron, so we recommend that. And overall, and then you change them out as you need to. If you start seeing lower flow rates, etc., then you know that that is starting to be used up overall. And if you have the availability and you have the extra space, then going with an ultra low micron or a half a micron is a great way to be able to then get to that microbial layer and get that extra protection from everything. So I just wanted to take a moment and actually just kind of give a little bit more information on universal filters. There are some additional filters out there, so it is important that they look inside their canister first. Let me just take this apart here and show. So in doing so, a universal filter is going to actually be open generally on both ends.
Right.
And then actually fits inside and then seals when when placing the cap.
Right.
There are other ones that are actually only on one end, and they have a different type of setup on them. So you have to actually specifically buy those types of filters from that manufacturer. But it's just important to actually open it up, take a look at it and see. And then we always recommend, if you have that canister on your board already, find out where it's connected to, look and follow the pipes on it. Is it connected just to your tank and protecting you against your tank? Or is it protecting the inflow water as well from public water source? So if it's doing both, then we always recommend more canisters as possible. But if you have a single canister and you're going to drink the water, then go with that solid carbon block.
Excellent. Great information. And boy, a lot of products, a lot of things to think about, a lot of things to check out yourself. And of course, if you go to Clear2O.com, that's clear, the number 2, the letter O.com. You can check everything out that Keith was talking about and all the products. And it's a great website. It's very navigable and easy to get around and clear and just a real pleasure to visit and look at. Sometimes sites get a little overwhelming. This is really laid out well and very easy to follow. So again, it's Clear2O. That's clear, the number 2, the letter O.com. Keith, as always, we love talking to you, love to visit with you and hear all the latest. And thank you so much for taking time out. I know you're a busy man, and thanks so much for joining us.
All right, Tom, thanks for having us, and we look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Likewise. Keith Bernard, our guest, he's the head of Clear2O. I got it right that time. Got to keep working on that. All right. So we, again, appreciate it, Keith, and we'll be back right here on the RV Advisor podcast in just a moment. Now these words.
The RVACA is a charitable organization protecting the rights of the RV owners. We'll work with dealers and manufacturers to ensure quality control is in place prior to delivery of an RV. Additionally, the RVACA provides assistance to disaster relief victims. Visit rvaca.org.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the RV Advisor podcast. I'm Tom Alexander, and of course, I am joined by our guest coordinator. There she is. It is Neve Carrizzacco. Hey, Neve, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. And hey, you're in an unfamiliar I mean, normally we get you in the car, right? So, but
Normally in the car, yes. We have a condo in Cocoa Beach. Well, my in-laws do. So we said we'd bring the kids up here to enjoy the weekend. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Oh, so you're in Cocoa Beach?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. How's the
Yeah,
weather up
so
there? I
it's
guess
nice.
it
It's
looks like
actually it's pretty windy, I won't lie. We went
it's
to the
windy
beach
here too.
earlier, but it was a little rough, so we ended up in the pool.
But the temperature's kind of nice. It's comfortable, warm.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always find it comfortable here compared to home. So
Yeah, I would imagine that anywhere in Florida compared to Ireland is
completely different. They are in the heart of
different,
winter right now.
you never
Yeah.
get really hot days there, do you?
No, our hottest would probably be a day like today, like in the 60s, 70s.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. And it'll last like a week of the year.
Yes. Welcome to another segment of Weather with Neve. So, well, we've got a lot going on. Obviously, as you well know, we paid a visit to the Palm Beach RV show
Yes.
last week, and so Gigi and AB and Sabrina and I are all out there hanging out, learning more about the newest RVs, and of course that was featured on Just Ask Gigi,
Yep.
one of our other shows, and then so we always like to cross promote, let people know that they can go back and visit that and kind of see all the cool stuff that's going on at the Palm Beach, or did go on, I should say, at the Palm Beach RV show. And of course there's a lot of, the RV shows are starting to happen again, like little by little. We did have the Tampa Super Show.
Yeah.
And people did get out for that. Not quite as, the attendance of last year.
Yes. Yeah. But it was still, it's nice to have that it was on. It was nice that they went ahead.
People are, they're trying to restore those kinds of things, and I'm glad, they are. And as long as people are doing the smart thing and acting responsibly, why not? Let's give it a go, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we have a show coming up on this show. We got Kirsten and Devin from Fifth Wheel Living. How'd you track those folks down?
Instagram. They have a really interesting Instagram account, and like I visited before, we have had people on with 10,000 followers, 100 followers, 100,000 followers, and it really makes no difference. It's all about the personality of the person that we invite on, or they want to come on, and their account and the information on their account. So yeah, reached out to them via Instagram because I just love all of their content, and they wanted to come on. So yeah, very, very excited to see them on our podcast, and I bet everyone is going to love them.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they both live, obviously they're together in a camper, but they also live very interesting lives individually. Kirsten does wonderful interior design, and Devin is a studio musician and touring musician in the Nashville area, and based out of the Nashville area. And so it's pretty cool. They have they're doing some cool stuff.
They sure are. Yeah, everything looks awesome. So it would be really exciting to have them on. Such a different life they live compared to a lot of the people that we see, that live full time in RVs or RVers. So yeah, it's gonna be super cool to hear more from them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we want to thank, of course, our guest today. It was Keith Bernard from Clear2O. And again, Kirsten and Devin coming up on Friday's show. And Neve, next time we'll chat and see what lies ahead beyond that.
Absolutely.
All right. For Neve, Carey, Zacco, I'm Tom Alexander. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. So long, everybody.